Well, hello everyone, and welcome to East-West Healing Space. And I am going to do an I Ching reading for today, February 7th, 2025. It's Friday. And it's a kind of rainy day here in San Diego, which is wonderful for us. We don't get enough rain. So the question is, what do we need to know for this coming week? It's been a crazy period of time, and I know a lot of people are just exhausted. So what do we need to know for this week? Let's see. We have a head and a tail. So that's 8. 2 heads are 6, and a tail is 2, and so that's 8. And that's a broken line. What do we need to know for today and to get through the weekend? How about that? What do we need to know right now? We have a tail, a head, sorry, I'm upside down, not enough coffee. 2 tails and a head. So that would be a 7. If you'll remember, heads are worth 3, tails are worth 2. What do we need to know for today and to get through the weekend? Ooh, stacked up. We have a tail, we have a head, and we have a head. Back to an 8. What do we need to know for right now? The 7th of February. We have a head. We have a head. And we have a head. Whoa, this is a changing line. It's a 9. Of course things are changing. That's why this book is called the Book of Changes, because nothing sits still. Sometimes the changes look good and sometimes they look crazy. Let's see. We have a tail. We have a head. We have a tail. That's another 7. And for our final number, what is it that we need to know for today and through the weekend? We have a head, and a tail. There we go. There's an 8. And so that changes, this line changes into a broken line. Interesting, then it becomes a double hexagram. So this trigram gets repeated once it changes. It changes to that. So I'm not going to write out the whole thing. I'm going to look at this whole hexagram, and then I'll look at this doubled. Okay, so what does our lovely I Ching say that we need to look at for today? Okay, so we have Kan. I don't know if you can see that. Kan as the lower trigram. And then in the beginning, it's Tui. So we go from Kan to Tui, and we get 47. And then it's Kan and Kan. Kan, no, that's Ken, sorry. Kan and Kan is 39. It turns into 39. Okay, let's take a look at those hexagrams and see what Mama Ching has to say for us for right now. Okay, so Mama Ching has granted us the 47th hexagram, which is oppression, exhaustion. How interesting. As I said, a lot of people I know are exhausted. So, above the lake, below the water, and in this case, the lake has dried up. It's empty. And that's the idea of exhaustion. So we have the judgment, oppression, success, not something we tend to associate with oppression, perseverance. The great man brings about good fortune, no blame. When one has something to say, it is not believed. So this is talking about a time when things are just not going right. And it talks about having the inner strength and the inner reserve and the inner conviction that the way that you believe is right, to stick with it. Because it looks like everything is terrible, but if you stick with it, over time, it will change. That's this judgment. Here's the image. There is no water in the lake, the image of exhaustion. Thus, the superior man stakes his life on following his will. Stakes his life on following his will. Yes, and that's what I was saying, that in our lifetimes, in human life, okay, sometimes there's nothing you can do about what's going on. There are things you can change and things that you cannot affect at all. And so when there's something that you cannot change and you cannot affect it, then you strengthen your inner core. You stick to your beliefs, your true nature. You remain true to who you are. That's most important. And over time, things will change. This is the book of changes. Okay? So that's what it's saying. Hang in there. Stay strong. Be aware that the outer world may not look the way you want it to look, but if you hang in there and stay strong, it will change and you will have success. You will have success by remaining true to who you are, to your values, to your inner resources. The superior man stakes his life on following his will. Okay, and in this case, his will is his true, good inner nature. So we have one changing line, and that's the only line we read. And I skipped a page here. So we have 9 in the 4th place. He comes very quietly, oppressed in a golden carriage, humiliation, but the end is reached. I'm not even sure I want to comment. What basically it is saying is that this image is a man who is wealthy, and he is oppressed in a golden carriage and humiliated by that. And the end is reached. Well, which end? I will leave that one up to you to determine. This is not a political channel here, okay? I don't do politics. So then this turns into hexagram 39. Hexagram 39. Okay, 38. Ah, yes. One of my more interesting ones. I love this. Obstruction. Above is water, and below is the mountain. And we got this once before. Okay? The hexagram pictures a dangerous abyss lying before us, and a steep, inaccessible mountain rising behind us. Yeah. Okay. We're surrounded by obstacles, and at the same time, since the mountain has the attribute of keeping still, there is implicit a hint as to how we can extricate ourselves. The hexagram represents obstructions that appear in the course of time, but that can and should be overcome. Therefore, all the instruction given is directed to overcoming them. Yeah. The judgment, obstruction. The southwest furthers. The northeast does not further. It furthers one to see the great man. Perseverance brings good fortune. This is interesting. The first time I ever threw the I Ching, when I was in my 20s, and I was living in New York and thinking about possibly moving to New Mexico. This is the hexagram I got. This is the only hexagram out of 64 where the first line says, the southwest furthers, the northeast does not further. That's when I became hooked on the I Ching. And in fact, the southwest did further. Okay, so let's talk about what this one means. So what the judgment here is talking about, the southwest in Chinese philosophy is where you go to retreat. Okay, the northeast is where you go to push forward. So what they're talking about here is that this is a time to retreat, but not give up. They're not talking about giving up. They're talking about retreating because what we are faced with, we cannot directly challenge and overcome it. And this is not necessarily on a grand scale. This could be between you and a friend or a partner or a parent or a child. Could be anybody, okay? You can't overcome the situation by arguing about it, by fighting about it, by confronting it directly. What you do in this kind of situation is you pause. And the pause here is a way of preparing, figuring out how to address the situation, how to overcome. And it's a good idea in this situation to consult with friends, with perhaps a teacher, a mentor, therapist, whoever it is in your particular situation. And the important thing here is perseverance. Perseverance brings good fortune. Okay, so when it looks that all is lost, you have to have this inner fortitude to keep going. And in that case, the obstruction is going to be overcome. And in this pause, this time to retreat, you do some self-reflecting. It's really a good idea to understand what it is you actually want. What's the goal? So all of your actions, when you do take action, and your words need to move you towards your goal. Even if you're frustrated and you want to yell and scream, when you know that yelling and screaming isn't exactly going to get you where you want to go, you pause, you reflect, you figure out what your goal truly is, and then you can move forward. And it says in the I Ching, this is the value of adversity. So then we have the image, water on the mountain, the image of obstruction. Thus the superior man turns his attention to himself and molds his character. So they talk about when you face a time of difficulty, when things look terrible, this is a time for personal growth. People who you see or hear or know who turn around and start blaming other people, they're not into growth. They're not into a growth mindset. But if you look inward and realize that you are the only person that you really have any influence or control over, and you take this time to look inward and say, okay, what do I need to do for me to improve myself so that I can then move forward in the world and do something more positive in the world or in your situation. It may not be on a world stage, it's on a personal stage, okay? Doesn't have to be grand. So that is the reading for Friday, February 7th. And I hope you have a beautiful weekend ahead. And I will see you again on Monday. Bye for now. Oh, before I go, if this resonated with you, please, 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 it would help me so much if you would like the video, and it would help me even more if you would subscribe to this channel. That way, these messages get out to people, more people. YouTube will show it to more people if you subscribe. So I really, really appreciate that. Thanks so much. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.